Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to Houselights, where we are venturing through the wing of King Arthur with this week's entry, 1981's Excalibur by John Boorman, starring lots of people. I'm one of your hosts, Sir John Mills, and joining me at this round table are my esteemed colleagues and fellow brave knights of film analysis, Sir Tristan and Sir Darren. Gentlemen, are you ready to pull these? I don't know. I'm not going to keep going with this. I just, I'm bored with it now. And boy, will that work into my review later. But anyway, Darren and Tristan, here we are with 1981's Excalibur as we continue going through the wing of King Arthur. Our first entry, which arguably is supposedly closer to the actual legend of King Arthur? Question mark. We don't know. Maybe it is. And it is directed by esteemed Hollywood legend, John Boorman, who
known for such films as Zardoz and Exorcist II, The Heretic.
But see, that plays right into it. He is coming off of a rough patch of movies after creating what a lot of people still refer to as a great film, Deliverance, starring Burt Reynolds and Jon Voight and Ned Beatty. And he hits Zardoz, he hits Exorcist II, and then he happens upon Excalibur, which starts life as his attempt to adapt The Lord of the Rings. Now, Darren and Tristan, I know that both of you, this is your first experience with Excalibur. It's not mine, but it's your first experience. And I'm gonna toss this over to you, Darren. Since this is your first experience with Excalibur, I would like to know, what type of film were you expecting going into this, and did it deliver on your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd seen, I knew the name. This is definitely one like you would see in the, forward-facing covers in Blockbuster. Like you would see this like walking through, probably in the fantasy section, because they always combine fantasy and sci-fi, which I hated, as I felt that sci-fi should have its own section, but they went out of business, so I won. But
better than combining sci-fi and horror for some reason. Like people always do that.
That was always a baffler.
Just sci-fi always was the stepchild that couldn't have its own things, had to share with its cousins. But no, I
all
remember
the hand-me-downs.
Yes, so true. But and then we're not even talking about what the SIFY, SYFY. It was just a sad time. But no, I remember seeing that in Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, and Excalibur with the sword. And I remember on either the front or the back cover, they had that one shot where they're all in the armor, and it's like the shiniest chrome armor. Like that's what like. The only thing I knew is like, okay, they got armor and it's really shiny, and the sword. I didn't realize how much it's like about the sword. I didn't realize that is what we were going to be, because I knew it was the Arthurian legend.
It's called Excalibur.
I know. I felt that was more like, we don't want to just call it King Arthur because we're going to be basic. We're going to call it the name of the sword or something cool.
I had no idea how many wars would be in the stars.
But so that's all I really knew. I didn't know who was in it. I knew it was, early 80s. This is a early 80s feels late 70s kind of vibe. Like,
oh yes,
it is technically 81, but
yeah, but I mean, the 80s doesn't really become the 80s until 83.
Yeah, exactly. Well, unless you're RoboCop. But yeah,
it's very turn of the decade.
Exactly. So yeah, I did not know much going in. I queued up the runtime and was like, oh, we're gonna be here for a little while. This is 2-hour plus movie. But you're absolutely right, John. It's the legend. It goes through. I kind of read the synopsis on Wikipedia to kind of remember the beats, because I don't know the legend by heart. I know the broad strokes, but I was like, oh, that's right. There was that thing with Lancelot and Guinevere, and then that's right. Oh, that's why he needs the Grail. Okay, it all makes sense. But Man, this movie, I will say, for better or worse, having watched it only a week later than Monty Python and the Holy Grail, was for a fun viewing experience because many of the sound effects were pretty much the same. A lot of the cadence and a lot of ADR. Oh my gosh, so much ADR in this movie. But it left me feeling like, man, like Sir Robin's going to come around the corner any minute now and just lift the spirits of this band of people. But it gave me more chuckles than I probably should have been giving it for the first third of the movie. But yeah, it was something, that's for sure.
I don't know about your amount of chuckles, but we'll come back to that. We'll circle back around. Now, Tristan, as our resident editorial critiquer of the podcast, somebody with a special passion for the editing. As you come into Excalibur, it is. As you come into Excalibur and you see the runtime, 141 minutes, and you're settling in and you're getting ready, and that first couple of minutes starts up, what was the vibe you were getting? Were you excited? Were you saying, "Oh boy, 2 hours and 21 minutes of this," or were you a little bit more trepidatious?
I was kind of like Darren. Like when I put it on, like on the screen and it said Excalibur 2 hours and 21 minutes. My immediate thought was like, it's long. Okay. But like nowadays we've been so inundated with super long superhero films that 220 is kind of the standard nowadays, which pisses me off. Because if it's 230, you're like, okay, this is a long ass movie. 245, that's ridiculous. 220, that's kind of average. But it's still too long. With this one, when we started getting into the opening scene, which turned out to be the first act, that's what really surprised me, is that the opening scene turned out to be the first act of what is a 5-act structure movie, which you don't see that very often in films. You see it all the time in TV, but you don't see it in films that much. I was super surprised, and I kept thinking, okay, if this was made today, that first act would be a prologue scene.
Yes,
it would be like something that would be super fast, maybe some voiceover, and like previously on Excalibur, like that kind of thing would be happening. So that's the first thing that actually popped in my head while I was watching. I was like, oh man, this is going to be long, but also at the same time, if this was made today, this would totally be wrapped up much quicker.
Yes. With that in mind, though, given the production history of the film, that it sort of began life as he wanted to make a Lord of the Rings adaptation. I believe as far back as Zardoz, he kept trying to make a Lord of the Rings adaptation, and it kept getting shot down. And he would say, okay, well, I got a couple of other ideas and some production ideas, so I'll go here. And so this is obviously closer to that than Zardoz was. But Darren, do you feel like while you're watching this that there is a Lord of the Rings vibe to the storytelling style?
That's a good question. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I didn't know that he had such a desire to do a Lord of the Rings movie. It kind of makes me think of how George Lucas really wanted to do like a Buck Rogers, and then they're like, nope, you got to do your own thing. And we got Star Wars. This is not a case of that. This is not, he wanted to do Lord of the Rings. They said no. And we got Excalibur. It was not, no Star Wars, it ain't. But no, I mean, I can see that. I don't feel like, oh, this character is kind of an analog for Bilbo or Gandalf or anything like that. But I do feel like he then said, okay, well, if this is the story I can write on, I can, the Arthurian legend, I'm going to make the greatest Arthurian Excalibur will stand the test of time for something. But yeah, I mean, it felt like he went all in. I mean, they're no holds barred telling that story.
The joust between Lancelot and Gawain. You remember that set? It was all kind of like woodsy.
Yeah, it was like the one outdoor set that looked like it was actually outdoors.
He originally had that envisioned for a Lord of the Rings scene.
It did kind of have a Rivendell vibe to it,
right? And that's the thing. It's like it felt so out of place, and it's not like he built it for Lord of the Rings because he never got permission to do it. So that scene he just had in his head, and he's like, okay, well, I guess I'll just continue. Like, I already have it built in my head. I already have
it's
it
like
drawn.
kind of outside the castle. It was weird because it's like they're
So
heading towards
weird.
the castle, and then they show up on this set. I mean, it's pretty. I'm pretty sure it's a set. It was hard to tell, but
I'm not sure. Yeah.
But it had a really weird vibe where all of a sudden it felt like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, when you're at the hideaway kind of set.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, why is that in Excalibur? Like,
It
and they're even
felt very
doing
out of place.
like training and other things. Like, it felt like, Kevin Costner's going to swing by on a vine in 2 seconds. And I kept telling myself, no, different legend.
Yeah. And it's all because he had that already built up in his head and on paper for a Lord of the Rings movie, and he just went, screw it, let's just go with it.
Yeah, it feels like that.
Also, I think it's funny that, like, John Boorman, he really wanted to do he really wanted to do Lord of the Rings. He wanted to do it so much that he's like, okay, I'll know what I'll do. I'll make a movie that'll be so bankable that it'll make money so that I can fund Lord of the Rings. So I'll make Exorcist 2.
Idea. Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought you meant this movie. Yeah.
No.
Oh.
He was just like, I'll use Exorcist 2 as a moneymaker. And it became one of the biggest box office bombs of all time.
About that. Yeah.
Poor Boorman.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I mean, stay away from movies that begin with E. It's not a good look for him.
I think the trickiest part of it is that, and the praise for this film with the photography for it, it's nominated for a number of awards back in the day for the photography. Ebert praised it. A lot of critics praised the visuals with this film. And I will just absolutely flat out throw myself on the fire at this point and say, this is not a visual style I care for. This is a very affected visual style. I don't get anything from it that wows me. There's no wow factor here. If anything, it feels like trying to stretch a production. It doesn't feel like the budget that they had was the budget they had, because this feels like camera trickery to try to make it look like a more expensive film.
I think you nailed it. It looks like they're trying to make it look like a bigger budget with the techniques, like you said, you would do for a low budget. But they had a budget. But so why? Yeah, it almost made me think of like a stage play. Like a lot of the blocking, it was very flat.
Yep.
Very flat. Like
very flat.
Nothing's ever happening in the background. Everything is right here, especially like that prologue. Let's just call it the prologue. It's kind of what it is. Like when he's riding, across the ravine, which we never see, but I guess there's a ravine there. Like that.
That's exactly what
like
it's going to bring up.
A stage play.
Like Uther, like when he was going to go and, pretend to be Igraine's husband.
Right.
Like when he's in the mist and he's traveling on the mist, like horse Jesus, and they use dry ice.
Right.
It was not impressive. Like even for 81, it was like, oh no, it's a horse.
Where you spend some money, you have a wide shot, and you do some sort of Indiana Jones 3 composite where it looks like he's riding across. Like you could easily have spend a little money there, but they didn't.
Well, I think getting to that is, I think it's because Boorman is from a slightly earlier filmmaking tradition, because the photography we're talking about, where, well, this looks more like a stage play, this looks more affected. Yes, because there was a crop of filmmakers who came up in the 70s, younger than Boorman, who had figured out how to do in-camera effects and post-production effects much more effectively. I think this, if anything, shows a director who his style has not adapted to the times and to the technology. He's still a step behind everything. So
it's the almost AFI generation. Yeah,
it's almost as if if I came at this and somebody said to me, well, this was made in 1972, I might judge it less harshly, because I'd be like, oh, well, it's a product of its time. Instead,
I think you
knowing it comes out in 81.
In 72. I don't think there's
right.
Like, actually thinking about it, there's not a lot of special effects in this movie. It's very practical.
Yes.
There's camera trickery and stuff like that. And it's not like it's special effects free, but like I want to say like 85% of it is all in camera. Just they put it on the screen there. But yeah, you could make this same movie in 72. I don't think anything was really that different. Maybe the hairstyles or something.
And something that really, really dates it is that it sounds like no natural sound was recorded.
Correct.
Every
It's
single
all
thing
ADR.
ADR. It felt like
very
every
much-
single line spoken, every single sound effect.
It felt like
was,
they got
was
through
ADR.
day 3 of filming and were like, you know what? The sound just isn't working. Let's just ADR the whole thing. And then they had to stick with that choice.
God, it
is
was
what
a
it felt like.
nightmare. It completely took me out of it. It's apparently
All of Merlin's
Boorman-
lines were so flat. Like there was
So
no
flat.
conviction.
everybody was
Mhm.
just acting in a booth. No one was acting like if they were on set or in the moment. They were just
Work up
in a
sweat
booth
or something. Come
reading
on.
their lines. And Boorman apparently hated the way that the Dolby sound mix sounded, the Dolby stereo mix sounded, and so he converted it all to mono. So we're hearing everything flat and mono.
Oh my gosh.
And so and they didn't do it, it didn't I felt like maybe 10% of it was affected and the rest of it was just where it sounded like everything was like this. It was just straight up against the TV.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
You know, it's funny.
important.
It is important. It is important, and I think that another layer where it shows with the sound is the music uses in it, especially Carl Orff's Carmina Burana.
Oh my
Or
god.
rather, I should say, the first 45 seconds of it repeatedly drove me to distraction because I'm like, okay,
Faith-
yeah, we got the Carmina
No.
Burana going.
No,
All
no.
right, we're charging, and it's what you're still going. Why'd you stop the music?
No,
like
no,
what's
Faith-
going
And they
on?
did
my
a
favorite
slow
part-
fade down.
Yeah,
They didn't even play it out. It was just a fade down.
But
Yeah,
even
it was
even
like-
better
Yeah.
when it became live music, because in the final charge, you hear it when our guys are leaving, and it's like, okay, here's our guys, and they're charging in it, and it's playing loud, and then it cuts to the bad guys they're going towards, and they can hear it playing softly in the background, implying that the music is traveling with the knights and gets
Right.
louder as they get closer. And I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense because there's no actual music there. And I was
And-
like, what kind of a choice is that?
and to
Why
your
would you do that?
And to your point, it feels like Lancelot charging the castle in Monty Python of the Holy Grail. Right?
Oh,
where,
man.
Where he and the sound are far off all the time. And all of a sudden they're on top of you. Look, I don't want this to devolve into what it's in danger
Yes,
of
things we
devolving
loved
into.
about
here.
this movie.
I don't want this to be a big hate fest, but having the experience of growing up in an extended family where this was a well-received film by the D&D crowd in my bloodline.
My mother
Yeah.
loves this movie.
Right.
Like she loves this movie, and I never watched it. And as a child, as a young person, I never watched it. I don't know why. I know now why she never showed it to me. But
because
it
it's
was-
crap, son. It's crap.
well, no, there's a few scenes in there that I don't think young Tristan would have seen. But
Yeah, that's true.
But I was like watching it now. I was so surprised that my mom liked this. But the older I get, the more I realize I was like, wait, you read that? You watched that? You listen to that? Okay. like you discover who your parents are the older you get. But anyway, yeah, so like this was my first time watching it, and even though it's beloved by my mother, and I texted her while I was watching it, she was just like, oh, I love that movie so much. I love it how the horses at the beginning, like when they're breathing, you can see the exhale through their noses, like you can see their breath in the air because it's so cold. Darren, I was telling you before we started recording that when I finished this movie, I every time I finish a movie for this podcast, I go on Letterboxd to see what other people talk about this film and rate this film, and it's always the opposite of what you expect every single time on Letterboxd. This was no different. But yeah, like this is beloved by a lot of people. This is like a lot of people in history like this. I mean, apparently this was Zack Snyder's favorite film of all time.
Now,
and that's why he has that, like, instead of the Mark of Zorro, like in Batman v Superman, that's Camelot is the film that Thomas and Martha Wayne are going to go see at the theater.
I I think that a lot of times when you encounter a film, we've all talked about this a billion times. I think, especially when I think of the relatives who were, where I say, oh, they were part of the D&D crowd. I was part of the D&D crowd as well. This movie just never latched on with me. It was one of those ones where I was curious about it. And I was like, huh? And I even ran into other friends. I was gaming, through high school and college, and they loved this film. They thought it was amazing. And Merlin was their favorite character of all time and all of that stuff. And I was always the one sitting there going, I'll give it another shot. Sure.
But am I the only one who thought Merlin looked a lot like, was it Bernard Hill, Theoden from Lord of the Rings? Like the nose and the
this actor went on to be in Spawn as
that's what I know
angel,
him from.
Yeah, the angel guide dude, whatever his name was in Spawn.
Yeah, Nicol Williamson. I can never pronounce his character's name in Spawn.
I can never remember it.
Nicol Williamson. He's been all over the place, and the production company told Boorman, you can cast anybody you want as Merlin except for Nicol Williamson.
Because they knew him. They knew, like, we're not going to let you do that.
I always thought he looks like Chaotica from Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah, he does. I mean, that's just because of the thing on his head, obviously.
The metal head thing. It looks very uncomfortable.
It does look very uncomfortable. It looks like
especially
it doesn't offer a lot of protection.
Imagine if you're in the sun, like just this hot plate literally against your skin.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's shiny enough. It's reflecting the heat, and you're also in England. So,
it's
not
a
a lot
metal.
of sunny days.
The metal's not going to reflect the heat. The metal's going to absorb the heat.
Light. No, it reflects. The whole never live in Florida sometime. You look for things that reflect light. Trust me, that sun, it sucks. But I'm saying, like, when you're in England, you don't have a lot to deal with that. Like, if anything, you got to worry about cold,
especially with the magical mists.
Yes, the magical fogs of miniature castles and stuff like that. And what's puzzling to me is, I think, as I come back and revisit it, and Tristan, I don't know if this read might resonate with you or not. This really came across to me as somebody who is a very ambitious director who accidentally bites off more than he can chew. But given the two losses he's coming off of, this has that air of, I've got to prove myself. I've got to have a big wow factor. And maybe it really is just the fact that a gigantic, seriously minded fantasy epic like this was more of a rarity back then. And that might be why it landed with people better then than it does now. We're post Lord of the Rings at this point. We've seen it done arguably the best that it's going to get done on screen.
Yeah.
And I think maybe this is just a director desperate to prove that he still has relevance and can still deliver something. And he hits the right audience in the right way. And, do you agree with that? Do you think that he's just swinging for the fences and it's not a home run, but it's like it's a double or even like a triple off of an error. Somebody, tips the ball sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I really do, because you look at Deliverance, whether you love it or hate it or cringe at it. I mean, that movie made an impact. It's in the zeitgeist. It made waves, and everybody knows it. Whether you know Boorman's name or not, Deliverance.
Yes.
And then Zardoz, and then Exorcist 2. It just got worse and worse, and then he comes out with Excalibur, which is, almost as highly as rated as Deliverance, but yet, has a lot. I mean, we're talking about it in positive ways and negative ways, and it I don't feel like it stands the test of time. So when I was in film school, we had to make 3 films a year, and it was basically just go do it. You have to complete a film by this date, you have to complete a film by this date, you have to complete a film by this date. And my first film was probably my best work of the year. Everybody loved it, the professors loved it, and it's one of my favorites as a student. My second film was okay, but nowhere near as good as the first one. My third one was by far my worst. And I talked to my professors. I was like, what is going on? What did I do here? And they're like, well, you were chasing the dragon of your first one and you tried too hard. And that always stuck with me. So for 20 some years, though, that their their comments have stuck with me. You were trying too hard. And for those of you in the creative arts, understand what that means. It's hard to define, but you know it when you see it. And John, I think that's incredibly astute to say that Boorman was sick and tired after Zardoz and especially after Exorcist 2, and just wanted a home run. And so he put as much as he could into it, but it was the wrong time in the wrong way, but it was maximum effort.
Well, and it's the Arthurian legend. So like, what part do you tell? Do you tell the entire legend? I mean, it goes.
Well, that's
like,
what he did, man.
It's what he did, and so like the Grail is like 10 minutes of it, and I'm like, Monty Python spent a whole movie on just that part,
Right.
you know. So I think you're right. I think he's swinging for the fences, but his subject matter is also like. And maybe it's like we said, maybe it's a movie out of time. If this had been made in 72, it would have been jaw dropping. Because I think it was technically possible to make a movie like this, you know, maybe a little bit bigger of a budget, but like practically and effects wise, you know, we're right around there.
I think that was one of the things that went against him with this film was, while there's a lot of positives with this movie, like there's a lot of moments that are pretty great. There's a lot of performances that were memorable. Not rememberable. That's not a word.
No, it isn't.
But he went on record where he said, "Oh, I was trying to do the story of Excalibur and of Arthur the Legend, and not focus on the characters, but focus on the story." That in itself is the problem, because that's a great.
I tried to make
a
film without focusing on the characters. That's literally the whole point of a film.
Exactly. That's a thing. It's the wrong medium.
Yeah.
That's why if it's in written text or if it's a book, you can do that.
You could
because
make the sword a living being that has an internal monologue and that we never hear as a character, but like you could do that in a book.
Even just make it a focal point where like you're from the perspective. It doesn't even have to speak or have an internal monologue, but have a perspective. But
I didn't know about the whole
film. You need to have something to grasp on. If it's not going to be Uther, it needs to be Arthur. If it's not Arthur, it needs to be Lancelot. If it's not Lancelot, it needs to be Guinevere. If it's not Guinevere, it needs to be Gawain. If it's not Gawain, it needs to be Galahad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Well, the whole Uther thing, I didn't even.
Well,
I didn't
and he
even
had
know
Merlin
that.
right there. Merlin could have been a very achievable through line for the entire thing. Just have it be Merlin telling us the story of what happened.
And that's why I want all of you to watch the TV miniseries called Merlin.
Maybe I'll get around to it.
We will.
No,
We'll get there.
But in all seriousness, I know I joked about that in previous episodes, but in all seriousness, like this follows the legend very well. It really does. Like I was really surprised to see how well they followed Uther's story, because you don't always see that in King Arthur tales. The story of Uther, it was pretty much just like Arthur was a kid and then he pulled the sword from the stone. But Uther Pendragon was his father, and he's a bastard, and you know he raped Igraine, you know, and everything. You don't normally see that, and in the miniseries of Merlin, you see a lot of parallels of Excalibur in Merlin, but yet through the eyes of Merlin. Like that's your protagonist, and so I think if you kind of wanted that with Excalibur, listeners should watch Merlin. Basically, I'm the PR agent for NBC's Merlin right now, but I'm going to move on.
Well, I didn't know anything about Uther. Like I didn't know that part of the legend.
Oh no!
And for a good minute or two, I was like, "Oh wait, they're saying Uther, not Arthur," because it's so close. At first, I'm like, "I don't remember this in the legend. Like, what is going on?" It's like, "Oh, it's his father."
It's
okay,
really fascinating. Like you could make an entire movie about Uther. You really could.
That no one would watch.
Screw you. No, I would watch it. But like you could. Now I want a TV show about King Arthur.
Well,
First season's Uther.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if HBO can get around to that and not.
You mean Max?
Yeah, Matt. Whatever. But you know, actually, this is the thing: is we're sitting here and we're talking about our pluses and minuses. I actually want to double back to the cinematography, the photography, because I said I don't care for the style. Okay. And the reason I want to double back to it is that the director of photography for this is no slouch. And we may very well be, I don't know if we're a product of the times or what have you, because the cinematography was nominated for an Academy Award. And it was nominated for the British Society of Cinematographers Award for Best Cinematography for that year. So
Yeah, but they're British, you know.
Are the Academy Awards though? That counts,
Okay,
right?
all right.
So there you go, you know. But and we're completely joking. We find both organizations
We
completely
are. We're joking. Don't write me.
Both
You guys
both,
love to write me when you disagree with me, but write me when you agree with me. Damn it.
both organizations are completely invalid and overly political in their choices with everything anyway. And I don't mean political in the politics sort of sense, but like the internal politics of the organizations.
But
anyway,
Alex Thompson, he
Yes.
photographed Hamlet, Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet, which is
a
gorgeous.
beautiful film. Absolutely gorgeous film.
And Legend, Ridley Scott Legend,
He also
and The
did,
Saint.
He also did Alien 3. Yeah. Alien 3. He did Cliffhanger, Demolition Man. He did Executive Decision. Like he's done. He was actually the cinematographer for Labyrinth, directed by Jim Henson. So this is
He
a guy
knows
with
what
a
he's doing.
storied career. It's literally, I don't know if it's just that. I mean, it would seem to me that this is a cinematographer who gives the director what he's looking for. And so I would lay the photography not working with me at Boorman's feet more than Thompson's at this point, because the guy's track record going forward from here is amazing. There are some really,
depending who you pair him with.
well, I mean, he worked with Michael Cimino on Year of the Dragon, which I consider a very, that's a little lost gem from 1985, same year that Legend came out. And it just an overlooked film, very much from that year. But that's what I think plays into as well with our whole discussion about how this is somebody really trying too hard. I think that Boorman didn't trust enough. He was probably micromanaging all of the decisions, because you have a cinematographer, no, I want this to look this way. Other people obviously enjoyed it. But then you have the sound mix. No, I don't care for the sound mix. No, we're going to make it mono instead. And in a post stereo era, like that is one of the most mind bending decisions. You have obviously
it's not
music
like stereo
choices.
was new or anything.
Right. Yeah, you have music choices that are laid at your feet, and you just don't know where to mix and move them. And it really feels like somebody meddling where they should have just backed off and let somebody make some other decisions, or at least present a couple of options. So we're all sitting here with these problems, with these things that don't function particularly well. And I want to ask you, Darren, what is one thing? Was there anything in this where when you watched it, where it was literally like a scene that jumped out at you where you said, I might feel this way about the movie as a whole, but this one scene was phenomenal?
Let's see. I'm like the last night that was added. I'm forgetting the name, but it's
Percival.
Percival, yeah.
Anything with Percival. He was the most interesting character really in the entire movie. Like because you're kind of getting that new point of view when he shows up and he's like, what's going on here? Oh, look at the round table. And it's like, oh, that's really cool. And then at the end, he's the one who gets the grail. He's the one who succeeds where Lancelot and others didn't. Like, he was probably my favorite character in the entire movie. So yeah, that opening scene where he's running after Lancelot. He's like, oh, just the world's not that big of like 20 days travel. But no, once that first kind of top down view of like the round table and they're all sitting there, although I did kind of notice that, like, at least in the wide shot, it looked like every chair was filled. And I'm like, wasn't there supposed to be a gap for Lancelot? But maybe I need to rewatch and there was a gap and I just missed it.
They have a sit-in like when the Oscars are
Yeah,
going to commercial.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's like, that's the trailer shot right there. Everybody around the big old table, and they got to yell at each other because it's huge and you're like 20 feet away from someone else. But yeah, everything with Percival, I really liked. And even just the clever spurs cutting his rope, like that's such a clever I mean, I know that's not in the legend. The legend doesn't say, and then the spurs of the other knight, cut the like. That's something that you put in a movie, and
So
unless,
those spurs,
unless I'm wrong, but
like, okay, like, I'm not a horseman, like I'm not a horse rider or anything like that. But those spurs look like straight up razor blades. Are we using those on horses? Is that what we're doing?
I don't think in the present day. I don't think we tolerate that in the present day, but I think spurs were a little bit tougher back in the past, probably.
Because maybe
as a plot
with
point,
Wyatt
though,
Earp and everything like that,
they need
like,
to just
with
cut
the
the
spinny
rope.
thing. But
the star.
yeah. Anyway, tangent. Ignore me.
But no, that part was So everything with Percival. Although I do want to ask, so this one part I don't understand, or I don't know if I'm interpreting it right. So when Mordred, the golden child, is born, and he's getting like a rub down from his mom, super appropriate, and all of a sudden he's like 10 years older. Is that supposed to imply the passage of time, or
Yes.
that she magically made him older?
Passage of time.
Passage of time.
Okay, because that's what
also, that
was my
armor that he was
second-
wearing, if you're going to wear that in public, put a bra on, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
seriously.
But
It's a fair
but that
point.
scene, I did for the first few moments think that she magically aged him, because
Oh.
like, now I get the fact that Arthur is older, but all the other knights don't seem to age in the same way. Like he's the only one who's gray, and I'm like, so has time passed? Like, it was hard to tell. And it could,
Well, he was also sick. Like,
right.
Because the land and Arthur are
Yes,
one.
are one. Yes, no. And honestly, I most likely you're right, and most likely it is the passage of time. But for a moment, again, she's a sorceress. Like, did she just? I'm tired of waiting. I don't want to wait 10 years for him to be, a 20-year-old and can fight. Like, boom, you do it.
Sorry. Can we talking about positives here? Can we talk about the absolute smoke show that Helen Mirren was in 81?
You mean the scene where she says the incantation and the smoke pours out of her mouth? Very interesting practical effect trick, and the smoke fills the room and she ages.
No, not that smoke show. But yes, I
Oh,
really
okay.
like
That
that
smoke
shot. Where
That was
the-
a nice
the pipe
smoke
is
show.
right next to her. Yeah.
But I'm talking about the other smoke show where you could ski off of her nose. Good Lord. That's a nice face. I just want to throw that out there.
I don't think anybody in film history would ever contest the idea that Helen Mirren has always been a very attractive woman. I think even today, people find her, even as a member of the Fast and Furious franchise.
Well, I mean, that's the thing then, is that like Helen Mirren is kind of like Maggie Smith,
Or
where
Judi
I've
Dench.
always...
Like, you
Yeah, I've
think of
always
them in
only
this
seen
older-
her
Yeah.
as an older woman.
yes.
Like, I haven't been exposed to her too terribly much as a young person, like in Caligula or this one.
Or even Angela Lansbury. Like,
totally
Angela
haven't seen
Lansbury
Caligula.
has a young era, like court jester and stuff. But I know what
Yeah.
you mean. It's like what you knew them first from is what you think
Right.
of.
And this is when I see that, I'm just like, holy crap.
It's really interesting. Just you're talking about younger actors in their roles and everything. Patrick Stewart looks basically ageless. I'm
Well,
like,
That's
the guy.
it's the Steve Martin effect. When you look
Yeah.
like you're 60, even when you're 30,
Yeah.
you look like you're ageless for decades.
Yeah. And I will say that Gabriel Byrne still bends my brain as Uther, because even though I've seen this before, I sit there staring at him. I'm like, that is Gabriel Byrne, right? Like, it's very odd to see him.
Underrated actor.
Oh, he's flies under the radar way too much.
Way too much. Gabriel Byrne is fantastic. I love everything he's in. Everything he's in. Even if it's a crap movie, he's good in it. Like End of Days, where he played the devil, that horrible Arnold Schwarzenegger picture. He was phenomenal. Horrible movie. God-awful movie. But he was fantastic. And he made a great Uther Pendragon. I really do believe that. I thought he was great. Like, even... okay, let's talk about this. I don't want to talk about this, but we need to talk about this.
Uh-oh.
The dude didn't take off his armor, all right?
Okay, yes. The physics of the scene are ridiculous. It's not
He
how it
laid
works.
siege to this kingdom so that he could get with Igraine. And then when he actually has the opportunity, he doesn't even take off his armor, regardless of the enjoyable factor. And I know that this is fiction. Okay, I'm not trying to be weird. This is fiction. In real life, this would be considered a very different thing. A word that I'm not going to mention right now. Obviously, it's heinous, it's horrible, it's disgusting. But his penis would be sliced off, is what I'm trying to say. I'm right?
Yes. I mean, yes, that's the way that the armor works. They both would have been dead from blood loss at the end of that whole thing.
Because I know we're talking about a magical world with dragons and
right,
and like where you can alter one's appearance through magic.
At this point, the even more uncomfortable part of the scene for me, setting aside other stuff we could talk about, right, is that it's the director's daughter in that scene, I believe.
Oh my God.
And I don't know that. Number one, I don't think that the graphic part of the scene is necessary.
No.
I don't think you need to show it. I do not think you need to show it.
Okay. I'm delicate.
Remember, it's a 70s movie. We just show it. Because that's what it is.
That's right. Darren, you're 100% right. If this was in the 70s, you would. This feels like a 70s scene.
It feels like it.
Okay, you guys know that I have delicate sensibilities, and I'm very fragile. I need to be taken care of. I need to be looked after.
It was an interesting first 5 minutes of the movie. Let's just say that.
But that scene, I thought, was interesting, and I liked. It shows the brutality of it. It shows how innocent Igraine is, and how she is a pawn and all. Think about the tragedy of Igraine, where
yes,
Uther pretends to be her husband. This is a kingdom. This is a medieval kingdom where I'm sure she had no choice to marry the king that she was with to begin with. Cornwall, thank you. And then when Cornwall's gone, she gets taken by Uther pretending to be Cornwall, and then she has a child that she loves, even though she knows that it wasn't Cornwall. And then the child's taken away. It's taken away. Her child is ripped from her arms, and in that scene, even the baby grabs her hair as it's being pulled away.
Moment,
and it just adds to the tragedy of it. Igraine's story is such a footnote, but yet it is so heartbreaking. And so that scene with the conception of Arthur, I feel like it kind of needed to be slapped in the face with it. And I don't often say that about scenes like this.
I don't know. I guess my sensibility is a little bit different. I think I still would have gotten the emotional impact of everything. I would have liked a scene later where Arthur confronts Merlin with it and says, "How on God's green earth did you expect me to turn out? Look what you made happen. You engineered me." Like this whole thing of destiny. And I think that's all the more reason that Merlin should be the one telling the story, so that Merlin at some point can say, you're right. I kind of did this. This wasn't the right way to go about everything. And I made mistakes and everything, but we gotta play what was dealt. So let's try to make it right now.
What
that would have played better for me.
I mean, why have that conversation? I mean, that would just take away from him trying to grab a fish and then falling over in the river. I mean,
well,
you're not going to cut that.
Why would you? You?
Well, and when we caught up to, the drawing of the sword and, and it's like Kay, I'm like, oh, Kay, I know that character, and then I was really surprised we didn't turn into a squirrel right around then. I was expecting that, but it did feel with the sword, like I liked how they kind of showed, okay, it was this battle and then he plunges it into the stone and it like, that's how it became the sword. And so I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. It did feel like random rock in the forest. Like I felt that this should be a more important place and it just happened to be over there, and like nothing was built around it. Nothing was like, it was just, it just happened. If you go 20 feet down the river that way, make a left, you'll see it. It's there. Trust me. It's like the importance it felt.
I consider the mechanics of that scene a leftover of him wanting to do Lord of the Rings, because it had a very much the feel of Isildur being ambushed and losing the ring.
Yeah.
It felt like he just made a little tweak there, and it very much felt like the Isildur attack in Lord of the Rings.
And the sword betrayed him.
Yeah,
He stabbed
basically.
it in the rock.
Yes.
Well, it also probably had the slight practicality of, we have to be able to have it near a clearing where a jousting scene can happen. So that's it.
Yeah.
Because later in the future,
yeah.
that's going to happen. So we need a little opening.
We already built the set.
Yeah.
So
built the set
where
first.
can this
we're gonna
be
shoot
in relation
this
to
direction?
the set?
So you can't see the set. And that's where we're
Right.
going to see it put into the sword.
Yes. And then a town built up around the sword. And
what did you guys
there you
think
go.
of Nigel Terry's performance as King Arthur?
That's
awkward
pregnant
silence.
pause
Exactly.
right there.
That is
Yeah.
exactly what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I will honestly say that I felt like he was an actor in need of clearer direction. The impression
That's
I got
pretty spot on, yeah.
was just he was sitting there throwing what he could at the camera, and probably plenty of times. So how do you want me to keep that way with the next take? How would you like that? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Get more green light on the sword, guys. Get more green. Yeah. We'll get to you, Nigel.
Don't
more
worry
green
about
light
your
on the
performance.
sword.
We're just gonna loop it.
Yeah.
In
seriously.
post. It's fine.
Yeah, don't worry about how you deliver. It's no big deal. It's no big deal.
And there was, honestly, I mean, the fact that they made his armor have the dual kind of neck collars, and I think he was the only one who had that. Like most people had one on one side, but he had the two flanges. And I'm glad for that, because it helped me identify who he was on screen, because everybody looked so similar, like except for Lancelot being in the shiniest of armors. Like it was sometimes really hard to tell who was who. And I'm like, give him some plumage. Give him like, man, I could identify the Knights of the Round Table in Monty Python from like 50 yards away. It's like the green one is Sir Robin, and the blue one, that's Sir Lancelot. And that helmet, like, I mean, man, they do it better. I'm just saying, for identification.
I was uncomfortable actually at certain scenes with the type of stunts that they had. There was a lot of stuff where it very much felt like older Hollywood, not enough concern for the safety of animals or people on set. In particular, there's one siege scene where Arthur, I think, goes down into the water after his horse, and I sat up because my first thought was, oh my God, the horse is going to trample him. And obviously it didn't. But I was very, very concerned while looking at that. And, you know, I mean, the thing is, it feels, the feeling I have right now is I feel like my opinion will anger somebody out there, because it's very obvious that this just didn't gel for me. I lost interest about halfway through, because I can honestly say that I've watched this film many times before, and each experience at about the halfway mark, my brain is drifting, and I'm nitpicking these sorts of things where I'm like, oh wow, the horse safety isn't good enough on this set, or oh wow, the way this whole Lancelot Guinevere thing is going down is just, it doesn't even make sense right now visually, the way it's cutting back and forth between everything. Like, I'm like, what the hell is even happening here?
There was no build to that relationship.
Yeah.
None.
It just suddenly was. It was just taken for granted.
He saw her, and then, you know, Kiss Me Beneath the Milky Twilight came on, and it just, you knew that they were college sweethearts. And it's like, that's the amount of chemistry they had.
And then
it's
suddenly Lancelot's naked laying in the forest. Sure,
man.
Why not?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so when he stabs himself, that was the most realistic thing in the movie.
Yeah.
Like when he stabs himself, just and I'm talking about the mechanics of it and the on-screen, like it looks so real to me. It was almost off-putting of how real it looked. It was insane. But speaking of naked in the forest, because he's not naked in the forest once. I mean, this is an amateur hour. When he's naked in the forest with Guinevere, I have to admit, it's more badass what King Arthur did than killing Lancelot. He stabs Excalibur between them and then leaves. so that
Mhm.
when they wake up,
Yeah.
they see his sword.
And they know.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, that is such a cool moment. But it's crazy to me that he didn't get it back until he was old and Guinevere was in a nunnery.
Yes.
Like, really?
Yeah.
You're just like, this is
Yeah.
yours now? Like the Lady of the Lake was just like, really? You're just gonna ignore this? Okay, that's cool.
Well,
I
she's
did
just
like
some,
how he tested Percival at the end, being like, "Oh, when you threw it in the lake, what happened?" And he's like, nothing happened." And it was like, oh man, that was because he knew, or he suspected that he didn't actually do it, and he knew, like, if because he's the only one who's ever witnessed the Lady of the Lake, except for Merlin.
What was the point of that scene? Why have the redundancy? So Lancelot is laying basically on his deathbed and says, "Go give it to the Lady of the Lake." He goes to the lake, changes his mind, comes back, and says, "Did you do it? No. Okay, I want you to really do it this time." Okay. And then he goes to the lake and does it. Why? Why? Cinematically. From a storytelling perspective.
I think it's because of what I just said, of the director got in his mind, I want this moment of, oh, the only person who's actually seen the Lady in the Lake is Arthur. So he's the only one who knows, like, so he could use it as a test, and then they kept it in. Like, you're totally right. They should not have had the back. That's like having, 2 or 3 runs on the Death Star in Star Wars. It doesn't work. You got to cut that down.
And like the sun was in the wrong position.
Yeah.
like it was
And then
sunset,
he's on the ship,
then it was
and that
night, and
song from Monty Python plays. Da, 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 da,
right. Well, here we are, as we love to say, rounding the third castle in this case. And so it comes time for our final thoughts and ratings. And so, Darren, I will hand it off to you first, good sir. Knight of the podcasting table.
It's a 3-sided table for the 3 of us. Yeah.
We have a triangular table.
There you
and
go.
Our knees are hitting underneath. It's not very big. It's not a good idea.
Lunchtime is a mess at this table. It's absolutely a nightmare. So final thoughts and final rating for John Boorman's 1981 well-regarded $35 million box office epic.
I mean,
Excalibur.
It made money. That's
it did.
not,
budget
that's
of
not,
11 million, made 35. There you go. It reestablishes him as a player in Hollywood, and he goes on.
That's a good return.
There you
That's
go.
a good return.
We'll put that in the positive category because there's not a lot there. But so yeah, I think we've said most everything. I think what really, the vibe I got the entire time I was watching this is, in the way that Robin Hood Men in Tights is obviously inspired by Prince of Thieves, like obviously, like the gist, the vibe in the Robin Hood legend. This feels like it came out before Holy Grail, and Holy Grail was the spoof of Excalibur. Is completely what it feels like. Like it's almost uncanny, and I have to keep reminding myself, no, that was made in 75. This was made in 81. It doesn't work that way. Not to say I don't think he watched Holy Grail and then said, let's put that in my Excalibur movie. And I know it's the same legend, but it feels like that. It feels like, there's, again, Lancelot. Like, again, I know it's the same story, so you have a lot of the main players, but yeah, there was a lot where I'm like, man, it really gave me that ripoff vibe, which was ironic because time travel doesn't work that way. So yeah, overall, I'm just looking at some of my other numbers and trying to was it? I can't give it over a 2. I can't give it a 1. That's a little too harsh. That's like burning it at the stake. But for what it was doing, honestly, again, like we said, I think it's just a movie out of time. If this had been 72, it would have been, I think, more amazing. It would have inspired Holy Grail in 75, just like I wanted it to. And but no, I think, yeah, but at the end of the day, it made money and had those chromium armor that just reflected so much light. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever be popping this in again. I'm good. Once is enough.
So Tristan, we now hand it over to you. as you drink from this cup, what do you rate Excalibur by John Boorman?
I'm with Darren. I'm giving it a 2. Like 2.5 to me is mediocre. 3 is liked it, but it has its issues. 2 is bad. This movie just has so many wrong things. It makes so many left turns when it should have gone right. And I wanted to like this movie. Like, even when it got kind of weird, I feel like if the movie maintained the style of the prologue and the ending, I would have had more respect for it. Because like when I went on the Letterboxd and checked out the reviews, everyone kept talking about how it was a psychedelic adventure. Like, it was out there. It was weird. And I'm like, yeah, maybe the first scene and the last scene was kind of psychedelic, but everything in between was just mediocre. And so it just didn't fit the tone, and focusing on the story and not the characters. I feel like people who really liked this probably really liked Mandy with Nick Cage. And
now, hang on. All right, go on. Mm-hmm.
I know I was
Shots
probably
fired.
ruffling some feathers. That maybe not. That may not be apples to apples, but I take it back. I take it back.
Good.
But this movie is just, again, I wanted to like this movie. My mom likes this movie. I love Arthurian legend, but it's just, I don't need to repeat myself. There's so much not working for it, and there's so much wrong with it. So many things. I can't give it above a 2. Anything above a 2 would be disingenuous from my own perspective.
I have wrestled with what star rating to give it. I agree. A 1 is a little too harsh, because there are scenes where if I lift them out, I think that Helen Mirren works really well, and I think that the scene where she ages at the end, I thought that was actually pretty cool. The way that plays, I like the way Arthur deals with the betrayal of the affair with Lancelot and Guinevere, even though, like you said, Tristan, there's no build to it. It's just suddenly there. It's just taken for granted. The audience knows, oh, well, they're supposed to get together, so why are we going to waste screen time with this? I agree that the Uther stuff is interesting and it's important, but I don't think that it pays off the way that it should, because I think there should be a later scene where Arthur confronts Merlin and says, this is all your fault. All the bad stuff is your fault, because look what you set in motion and how you did it. You could have done it other ways. You didn't need it to be this way. And I think that there are just a lot of things that are interesting and earnest, but just don't gel. And so I will also give it a 2, because I could even see myself coming back to parts of it here and there and saying, yeah, see, this scene works. It's in a lot of ways, it's like David Lynch's Dune, where I don't think that's a good movie either. But every so often I find myself rewatching it, because there's a part of me that's like, maybe it'll work this time. Maybe this time it's going to be good. So 2
I have
for
one
me.
last question. Who's the protagonist in this movie? Is it
Yeah,
Arthur?
Exactly,
Is
like
it-
we were saying
is it
earlier.
Merlin?
We don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Is that
it
it's
the
not.
sword?
No, it's not focused on a protagonist. It's not focused on the characters. It's focused on the story. So the protagonist itself is just the legend, which is why this movie fundamentally does not work.
But as we continue moving through the wing of King Arthur, which has gotten off to a little bit of a rocky start, I would say, our eyes look forward to the more established 1990s, when all filmmaking troubles were figured out and there were no production woes anymore, as we look toward Jerry Zucker's 1995 film First Night, starring Sean Connery and Richard Gere, only on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.